Sedge here. Let's talk about weapon combat in Alpengard. Now, obviously, the size of a weapon significantly impacts how much harm it's going to inflict. A huge two-handed hammer or axe is going to deal a lot more punishment than a small one-handed rapier or dagger. But on the other hand, those smaller, lighter weapons are better for maintaining defense. You can parry with them much more easily than some big, clunky weapon. So there's a trade-off there. And weapon harm is also impacted by the skill of the person wielding it. A salter is, a member of the warrior class, is going to deal a lot more damage with a weapon than, say, a wizard. That obviously makes logical sense. And then there's a third major factor, which is weapon stance. Now in Alpengard, you have the option to shift among stances. Do I want to wield this weapon as destructively and offensively as possible, or do I want to hold back a bit and maybe maintain a tighter guard? Well, there are 5 stances in Alpengard: the aggressive, offensive, transitive, defensive, and elusive stance. Now, most weapons can be wielded in 2 stances. Some are restricted to 1. A couple can be wielded in 3 different stances. But what that does is it brings a level of complexity to the game. Say you're wielding that huge two-handed hammer. You have the choice of the aggressive or the offensive stance. If you're in the aggressive stance, you're going all out, inflicting as much harm as possible. But if you burn Numa to parry, you're not going to be able to maintain a very tight guard. Now, you could shift back on a turn into your offensive stance, in which case you will deal slightly less harm, but if you burn Numa to parry for the next combat round, you're going to be able to protect yourself a bit better. So when you fill out your character sheets, admittedly, this can get a bit confusing because you may be entering weapons a couple different times and showing what they do in different stances. And hey, if that's too complicated as you're just learning the Alpengard system, no sweat. Just stick with one stance and say, hey, I'm going to use my big two-handed sword in the aggressive stance, and that's it. And then as you become more experienced with the system, you can start to play with other stances available for your weapon. So it just depends on what you're comfortable with. But as you explore stances, I'm convinced you will fall in love with them because they give you more combat options and allow you to keep questing.